did I just do with my pen? Not my pen. Oh my God, you don't have to throw things. Jeez. Somebody's new.
It's time.
Yeah, it is. Okay. Okay. Well, being 4:01, I'm going to call the meeting of the Personnel Committee, of the Ojai Valley Sanitary District, in session for Thursday, July 24th.
Sorry.
Anyone out in the
TV land?
we do not. All right, public comment. Comes for committee consideration, discussion, and possible recommendation of the Board of Directors. First item is cost of living salary adjustment, COLA.
So it's that time of year again, where we review the June over June CPI to consider a cost of living salary adjustment to our current salary schedule, which applies to all employees on the salary schedule with the exception of the general manager, who is reviewed per the terms of the contract. And currently June CPI is 3.2%. Has been the standard to bring June over June to the committee for consideration. And we will retroactively apply it to July 1st. So our cost of living and our salary schedules correspond with that, or based on a fiscal year.
Discussion?
Just have a question. Every year we have to make this decision. Some years we've been higher or lower than the average. And I seem to recall there was one year when we were significantly under the, and well, we'll kind of catch up next year. What are we doing overall over the last 4 years?
So we have generally never exceeded CPI. The 5 times that I've presented it, we've met CPI as the recommendation, with the exception of 1 year when the inflation was really high. The board approved 6% and the inflation was 8.6%. That's the only time that I have experienced. And in reviewing the history, recent years, or probably the last 10 years, that the board has not met CPI.
We have officially met it. We haven't gone over it.
Correct.
If we're at the CPI, I'm good.
I did have a question. How are we to discover, is it discoverable, comparable data for Ventura County? Just not kept?
Well, we've always adopted this as the source we use for consistency's sake. There isn't a true local source. The true local source that speaks to inflation overall, which wouldn't be an actual index specific. There's Cal Lutheran does an economic forecast and they speak directly to inflation in Ventura County. That's quite delayed. The data on that is delayed by, you're usually looking at it a year late. But that's really the most reliable source for overall inflation as it pertains to Ventura County.
Well, the other thing I could think of, and I know use it city to discuss affordable housing and that sort of thing. That's the change in area median income. Now, being median makes it a questionable source in the first place. Just curious if anybody thinks that looking at average change in salaries, in income versus the CPI, is that of any use at all?
What is, I mean, you're talking about figure, salary figure. A percentage change in the salary figure.
That's right, because that is a Ventura County specific.
And how much has that changed?
I
Oh, you
don't
mean,
have, I don't have the data. I'm just asking theoretically if that's of any use.
no, that's a good question.
Is that census based? Because census would also be not necessarily current, so I don't know.
No,
Yeah, and mix of jobs isn't same from year to year either. Just kind of wondering.
I mean, it would be great if we could identify a source that was more timely and specific to the area. I have yet to come across one.
Love to have that.
There's a lot of conversation that happens generally when their agencies in the area are considering cost of living adjustments. Everybody sort of is like, hey, what are you thinking about presenting? This is what I see it is. Is this the source you're using? And for the most part, they're all fairly common, the sources, and it just changes from what time frame you use, what month, year over year.
more importantly, what's the delta between CPI and what anybody else might be using as far as a different?
It just depends on what they use year over year. So for example, it's been 3% for a lot of the years. And so if they're going to use, say, for example, May over May, when they consider it, some people use over March because it's timely for their budget.
Use February over February?
Yeah, we used to use February over February so that it was there was a justification as to what you used and incorporated in your budget. We changed to June over June so that it matched our fiscal year. But we also did that because at the time, the years in which inflation was running so high, we became so far behind by the time that we considered it the next year because it was running rampant that it was kind of one of those things where it's like it allowed us to cast our net closer to inflation during those years. And then we've kind of stuck with it ever since because it seems to correspond a little bit better with our budget year. So we can definitely change that.
If you, using just this spreadsheet nationally, if you look at Pacific, even the West size Class BC, the differential is spread, if you will, about the same as the one that's highlighted for Los Angeles, Long Beach, and Anaheim, 3.1 to 3.3, the 2.4 to 2.7. Difference is going to, a matter of decimal points, and be it's 0.2, be it's 0.3, between other numbers that are representing larger classes, larger groups would be with 3 up, 0 being right.
I'm happy to go with CPI. Just would love to have something that was more specific. Yeah.
Every time we have the conversation, I believe we have the conversation.
And we can definitely look into that and see if we can find anything that's timely. I think we do that every
What
time.
do they use at the county?
Well, the county's kind of an interesting beast in that being that they're union, they're always years behind cost of living. So theirs is a negotiated rate using a basis, and they're always drastically behind. So I wouldn't use that necessarily as a wonderful comparable. Meeting CPI and salaries. We budgeted 3.5% as the projection. So this is well within what we did. So there'll be no budget consideration for that.
So it's 3.2.
By me.
Good. In that case, then we'll.
CPI is very widely accepted.
Yeah.
Standard.
Yes. Okay, so at this point, do we want to take a vote? And I think we just took a vote.
Yeah, you don't need to,
unanimously-
you just need to have everybody sort of consensus. and
unanimously-
recommendation.
Unanimously recommending to the board, adoption of a 3.2%. Okay, the next item is employee benefit health insurance cafeteria plan.
So CalPERS has finalized the 2026 health insurance premiums. Overall, we saw consistent, every year increases anywhere from 6 to 11%, depending on what plan you're on. Some plans went up 13%. Luckily, none of the plans that our employees consistently subscribe to are, those particular plans. So given that, we, about 3 years ago, changed the methodology for the basis of our cafeteria plan. In its inception, it was intended to cover a family level PPO. The PPO plans have increased drastically over the years, making that quite a fiscal commitment. So
Doctors are harder and harder to find.
So we have reverted 3 years ago to using the basis for our cafeteria as a family level HMO plan. They tend to have more stabilized costs year over year, average increase of about 5% a year. Hopefully that works for the majority of our family level employees actually participate in an HMO plan. So that's worked out really well. $1,650 is what's needed to increase the cafeteria plan to maintain the same level.
That's 10%.
That's overall. So as I said, some went up 5%, some went up 13%. So it's an average. And then it obviously depends on our employee. But yes.
Do we budget?
We budgeted for a 5% increase to employee premiums. We have some vacancies, and so that will curb the cost. I don't anticipate needing a budget adjustment to cover an increase. Because we've actually
Because the
budgeted.
budgeting is already conservative.
The budget is conservative. We have vacancies and our vacancies are budgeted for a family level plan for the maximum amount of the cafeteria. So it all sort of levels out. Some of our new hires are singles and not family level. And so we have a savings there. And so I think that it's all going to be very close to what we budgeted and we going to need any sort of budget adjustment for an increase in the cafeteria plan.
If we do, you'll let us know.
But that will be towards the very end of the year when I reconcile. So it will depend on what our employee pool is at the time and what expenses are.
10% jump in cost seems like a drastic number. 1 year, I'm sure it's real.
I keep thinking that in previous years that I was going to see a larger jump, almost like a post-COVID effect. And I think we're fortunate that we didn't actually see that. It has stayed fairly consistent, with the exception of some of the PPO plans. CalPERS administers 2 of the PPO plans themselves, and they've restructured those every year to sort of keep the cost down. So kind of interesting. Interesting how Kaiser can reduce their costs because they have so much control over their overhead. So every year Kaiser's costs go down slightly. If that's
And their
interesting.
volume goes up slightly.
It's kind of,
That's how they cover it.
so it's kind of interesting in that regard.
I haven't seen this as a topic in the national news very much. Do you think people talk about inflation covering this number? Has anybody else seen it? Or
I wish my healthcare costs were only % less than last year, more than last year. I'm in a PPO.
you're not 65 yet.
Oh, no, I'm well past. Medicare supplement reflects the onus.
Supplements going, but supplements only a fraction of your total medical. costs.
It's true, about
The
20%.
government pays for that big chunk of Medicare, which is the primary.
Well, they pay 80% of usual and customary. And supplement pays the other 20% of usual and customary. But I had a doctor for years in Ojai, said, here's my bill. Whatever Medicare pays is fine, owe me the rest.
Ray Sims, was
In fact,
it? Yeah.
At that point, you were lucky that he was.
Doing it that way. Had him for 28 years until he retired. Well, this is just as a point of reference. We're the only country, first world, second world, or third world country in the world you can actually go bankrupt as a consequence of your other country.
every place else, they just, have the rest of the taxpayers pick up.
Whatever it
the difference.
is, whatever it is. And the argument, you know, obviously you're well schooled in the pros and cons, but I remember when I used to finance with the head of neonatology down at General. When they were all the docs in solicited with managed care industry, we're all told, "We'll take care of all the business so you can practice medicine and do what you want to do."
Right. As long as you see 46 customers per hour. all
Nobody
day
said
long.
any of that.
No.
Okay, nor did they say any of the other implications that have come home to like chickens to roost.
Mhm.
So no, that's what happens when you, the notion of capitalism and business, making something better. Yes, if it's a product. Yes, if it's something that's being sold to the public. But if it's something that's supposed to take care of people. So good.
I love Medicare.
I,
Wait a minute, isn't that a sole provider? Oh, good Lord.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know, and
Why would they want
everybody,
everybody to have it?
you know, when they scared all the docs at the time by saying, because fear is the most powerful thing, especially when, you know, a lot of physicians are really obviously good practitioners, clinicians, and scientists, but they're not necessarily good business people. And they were frightened into, you know, you don't want to turn out like the British model or the Canadian model. They didn't even talk about the third world model, okay? And everyone went, no, we can't have. Now, but no one at the time, you'd think that they would do a little research. There's the public sector and then there's the private sector. And almost all Europe's like that. You can get a private doctor anytime you want to, and you can afford to do it, to go with the
National Health Service.
National Health Service. But the National Health Service in turn takes care of everything else. So, anyway, I'm sure you know even more about it because the my tongue. Yeah, exactly. There we have it. Good tongue biting. There's almost no blood spatter. So okay, so we're at this point. We're all good with
This number is fine.
with the number.
I'm gonna, I'm a little bit shocked, but I'm good. But our employees are worth it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
And this then covers
The last thing
basically
we
all
want
of
to
our
have
employees.
worried about.
Yes, as long as somebody doesn't pick the highest level PPO plan, certain level, they will be 100% covered. I believe that an employee only pays out of pocket, but it's because they want a very specific.
And the
And you're
newer,
always going to have things like that if given a choice.
the newer single employees may get money back.
That is correct, yeah. And that number has drastically reduced as we've to the gap, you know,
Yeah.
so.
Okay.
I also like that the cashback's not going together.
No, and it's very, like I was just said, Steve, it's very, very nominal. So anybody who has a family plan is generally going to not get anything back. And some of our employees plus spouses get a nominal amount. So it's really only our singles for the most part.
Good by me, Chair.
Good.
Good by me, Chair.
Mainly make the recommendation of the board. All right, reports. Any members?
Me.
Nothing relevant to the district, but there's something very interesting going on in the city.
Oh. Ken?
Still,
Bring it up.
um, no, one of the things that the city clerk's office sees every time it comes through is claims against the city. We have things like guy with a haul truck, it's a tree. Says, or either the branch was too low or you should have labeled it so that I would know to avoid it. It's a common thing. The one right now against the city, the former finance director fired. You read the Ojai Valley News, you'll have seen a lot of detail already. She is asking for plus or minus $1 million. Is a sizable chunk of the city's budget. Any claim against the city immediately goes to our joint powers insurance agency. And we have a lot of knowledge about how they deal with these things. They do. The city pays to the JCPIA, as they call it. Well, that's all. It's a budding scandal because the claim, which is always required prior to filing a lawsuit, file a claim with offending party called.
That is, that when the offending party is a public agency.
When it's a public agency, right? So the claim, which came in the form of an attachment, the lawsuit, which came in the form of attachment to the claim, names, acts and activities. And so, see, interesting.
You know, Ojai, there's another issue at Ojai that I think affects all. And then I think it was Leslie Rule. He
Oh,
fought
she
against,
still has a claim against the city right now.
I mean, the city wouldn't defend her. She was doing what she thought was right. And I think she was right. Read the details in the Ojai Valley News. And, when she was sued, the city said, oh, you're on your own. That affects all of us because all of us do what we think is right. Every month when we come to these board meetings, think that I could get sued and you guys would all say, hi, Jim, you're on your
Good
own.
luck.
I mean, be enough to make me really reconsider wanting to be a director. City needs to think of the big.
Speaking of the city, should anybody know when they might be revisiting or readopting the second unit compliance program? Kind of like it's a bummer for us.
Does it? I thought they eliminated the sunset provision.
They're telling customers that it doesn't exist right now, it expired, and they don't plan to revisit it in any part of the near future, but they won't walk them through how to actually go compliant. It's like, we don't really know because it doesn't exist.
Okay, this is for existing structures and conversions.
Yeah, for their compliance program that they had prior to ADU legislation, you know, where basically you come in and you're like, sorry, I want amnesty, and here's my second dwelling unit.
They never called
they're
it
like-
amnesty, but that's what it was.
Yeah, and they're like, here you go, here's your permit, like in a week, and like we move on, and they call it a conversion of an existing space, and like now, they really kind of are, it almost appears like they don't really know what to tell them, so it's just that doesn't exist, and so it's like, it's a little hard for us to navigate because we give them the option of choosing that, but the city's not really engaging in that because they can't just say yes.
Well, and if it is a prior conversion, you need to provide paperwork that says when was the conversion done? Because that establishes electrical, plumbing, whatever standards that you have to meet.
Well, yes, having gone through that process, having been on the building appeals board and make recommendations to the city, having actually filed the city to building appeals board because of the way the city was handling a conversion. What, they've been talking for years about not doing the ordinance that provided the amnesty effect. Okay, and in the day before the state took action, there was nothing else. So that the city's that city's ordinance was an inducement for people to legalize and that way, obviously, the city, it would benefit the city as far as random numbers and et cetera, et cetera. My take on it is they don't think they have to do anything now because the state has now co-opted the field. But if they're not telling applicants, they can obtain it by right, then they are subverting the intent of the state.
It's just, yeah, it just seems a little bit, and like I said, I only hear this secondhand from people. I've had a few people who've approached them, and absent the ordinance now, they don't really know what to do because they have to essentially process it like anything else, which would increase their volume exponentially, which I don't know that they're necessarily staffed or skilled for. And so it would be great if it mimicked the process that of the county, and then our identical, you know, our two jurisdictions would be like for like. And we always love to have the opportunity to kind of see what people are doing as far as connecting to our system versus here you go, we've approved it for you, sort of thing. But I think absent their ordinance that made it so easy for them to, conceivably so easy for them to approve things retroactively, I think they're a little. So I didn't know if anybody knew what the intent was, is to not adopt it and come up with standards for actually permitting it to the true building and safety standard like the county does, or.
Maybe he's going to ask, and I think I'm going to get mayor up.
I'm just curious.
He may not know about it because, you know, when he came aboard, all of this wasn't.
I've heard multiple sort of answers that people have gotten, something of we're going to revisit it in the fall and potentially renew it, or there just isn't anything. And so it's like, if they're going to revisit it under a different, more stringent or standardized rigorous approach, that would be welcomed. It'd be nice to know also, just some timing.
Yeah.
Or
What's the criteria, Doc?
going with this exactly, you know? Because the opportunity that we give people to remedy violations with us corresponds with a process for the overarching permitting agency. And if we don't know it, we can't properly guide them.
That was good. Thank you.
They can't know in advance of a vote, though. City council can't give you an answer because they don't know how their
You
council.
can certainly know what direction they're heading.
One,
Yeah.
yes, and one can go to the city attorney and say, what is the current state of play?
Look with that one.
I'll talk to Taylor Anderson. I won't talk to Matthew.
Fair enough.
Communications as a
Agency
public
to
agency, yeah, agency to agency.
They're not real good about that.
Because
I would not suggest that.
You would not suggest that, really?
They're just not any good at it. Never have been. You know, that the question has come up multiple times. The school district. Because they're, you know, the city has to approve what the school district decides to do in almost anything. They don't have purview. They don't have to deny it. They have to approve. Very poor communication over the years. For a while, they hadn't spoken in years, literally, officially. So, it's remarkable. But then, you know, that's what makes the special place that it is.
We act like it's new news.
You go generationally, don't you think this can change? And
No.
it
It's
doesn't.
just a different version of the same thing.
Yes,
For
exactly.
decades, it
Yes.
had the reputation
Yes.
of being very hard to deal with. Earned reputation.
Well,
Hard for that.
certainly. But however, if somebody, and very few people take this, if you want to communicate with the city you want to move that? Move this under there?
Looking for the cap.
Very, very effectively. It usually works best if you have your attorney do it. Because then they can,
They,
then they could go into closed session, not tell anybody what it's about and call it anticipated litigation because they got a letter of inquiry. No, it's remarkably how subverted the normal communications can get because eccentricities, personal eccentricities. Okay, are there any other reports? Anyone? Okay, in that case, then, it being 4:30, I'm going to call this meeting of the Personnel Committee closed.